Hey, what is up guys? My name is Guillaume, welcome to Thomann's Guitars and Basses and to today's video in which I'm going to build a budget-friendly, turned out to be mini kind of compact, John Mayer inspired pedalboard. The idea for that video was to make something within the 500-ish euro-dollar budget to try and cover as many John Mayer sounds as possible, regardless of the era, whether we're talking about the trio, later John Mayer, continuum, whatever. So try and get as many tones as possible out of those 500 euros. And then while I was selecting the pedals, I kind of realized there was a second trend going on regarding the size of those pedals. So let's have a look at what we will be putting on the board today. We're going to start with our tuner and using the Polytune 3 Noir, the black mini version, latest version of the Polytune. John Mayer has been using some full-sized Polytune, some Boss tuners as well, so it's not out of characters, and it is very small. Moving on to pedal number 2, which is the Spark Mini Booster by TC Electronic. I would have gone for the Katana Mini if they were still either in stock or in production. I'm actually not quite sure, because John Mayer famously uses the Keeley Katana on his board. Now, the placement is going to be a bit arbitrary because we've seen those katanas in front of the rest of the overdrive section or after, depending on the period. For that particular board, I'm going to decide to put it in front, and but please keep in mind that this is completely arbitrary. You can put it wherever you want, either use it to boost into pedals or to use strictly as a volume boost after the pedals, knowing that John did both. That takes us to pedal number 3, and that is the Tone City Bad Horse. That is a very compact, very cool little clone, obviously, because John Mayer's clone. Not going to explain that one. The placement here again is a little bit arbitrary in the sense that he usually runs the clone before the rest of the overdrives. That being said, as we've seen after the trio era where we still had some Boss, either blues driver, some Marshall blues breakers, sometimes they would run those before the clone section. For today's board, I'm going to put it first, just because I assume if you do the same, you do want to have the option of boosting with the clone, with the Bad Horse in our context, into the other drives on the board. And speaking of drives, here's our first one for the day. This is the Harley Benton Dill Breaker. It is a Marshall Blues Breaker inspired overdrive circuit. It's really, really well done. And that will, I think, cover most of the continuum sort of era, like the big sort of blues breaker period of John Mayer's career. But no John Mayer inspired board would be complete without some sort of a tube screamer-ish circuit, which is what we have with the Wampler Moxie. That pedal is completely drawn from the TS10 circuit, famously used by John. Obviously, we had some TS808, TS9s during the John Mayer trio period, but I think for most of the core sounds and the sounds that made him famous as a guitar player and a blues guitar player were more sort of TS10 related, which is why I'm going to use the Moxie. And like this, we're out of the overdrive section and going into modulation. Now, this was a tough choice as well because John Mayer's combo of Qtron and Octava is very special. The placement in the board is usually after the drives, but on some of the latest Big Tour boards, we've seen that being placed between the clone and the TS, for example, and in other places, knowing that the Octava is run within the loop. Now, I couldn't fit an Octava within the budget, but that more envelope is the closest thing that we're going to get to sort of that auto wah envelope filter thing that we're going to find on some of John Mayer's songs. And reaching the end of that board, we're going to be using the Ibanez analog delay. Now, that one is really, really cool. It is a truly analog delay, reminiscent of the sounds that you would get with the Aquapus that John Mayer has been using since the beginning. So nothing tricky there. I could have gone for something that offered more options as delays. More does also multi-mode, sort of tape, digital, analog thing. But I think like this is probably the higher sort of really truly analog mini delay that you're gonna find, and it'll do a great job. And last but not least, we're gonna have the Tiny Spring by Tone City. Now that one is a bit of a, because Although John Mayer uses the Strymon Flint for some of the reverbs and some New Neighbor pedals as well for the more intense, I would say, reverbs. He runs reverbs on the amps, at least some of them within the amount of amps. So this pedal is more, if you don't have actual spring reverb within your rig and within your amp, I'd recommend something like this. If you do have a spring reverb within your amp, maybe go for something that's a little bit more platey, or maybe a modulated reverb for those really, really long trails on some of John's songs, and that'll give you more versatility if you already have the spring thing going on in the amp. And that's it. That's going to be our board for the day. This is also going to be our running order. Again, take that with a grain of salt. You might want to switch some pedals here and there, depending on your personal taste or what kind of John Mayer flavor you want to go for. So now I'm going to mount our power supply under the board. This is the Harley Benton ISO 2 Pro, which has just about the right amount of output for this mini board. I'm going to mount this, I'm going to power all the pedals, I'm going to patch up all the pedals, make that look all nice and clean, and then I'll give you guys some sounds. Alright, and just while I'm wrapping this up, if you're putting that kind of board together with mini pedals mostly, not only, but mostly, a lot of them will come with like some sort of rubberized like little pad at the bottom. If you are serious about that board and you want that board to stay in place and be like sturdy while traveling, that kind of thing, remove that pad. A lot of those pedals, as good as they are, and they really are good, are not necessarily collectible. I don't think it's going to hurt the value of that pedal to remove that coating from the bottom. If you don't want to, there also are clamp systems that don't require any sort of pedalboard tape. So I want to give you guys an example, but I'm not going to do it on those pedals because that's just a demo board for the sake of that video. Those pedals will go back to sell as B stock, obviously. So not going to use that, but we have that Strobo Stomp that's usually on the main board and it still has the rubber coating at the back. So it's usually very loose glue. So if you just pull on it, it goes, and it's very easy. You can, worst case scenario, you can always glue it back. I know it hurts my soul to do it a little bit, but worst case scenario, you can always keep that in the box and glue it back whenever you want to sell it. Like, it's not damaged and that's just glue residue. It's not a problem, but you kind of have to be aware of it. So yeah, that's how that works if you want this to stick on the board. But with that said, this board is super nice. I'm really happy with it. Now we're going to want to make sure that we have power to each and every pedal, that the sound goes through, and that obviously all the pedals sound the way they should as well. So I'm going to plug that in and test it out, give you guys some sounds. All right, and that's it for our mini/budget John Mayer pedalboard assembly. All the links to all the pedals and everything that I've used today are in the description box down below, so go check them out. Leave me a comment if you're interested in that kind of video, if you want me to do more either budget boards or like board tutorials or anything that you can think of. Please do let me know in the comments, and while you're down there, if you can like this video and subscribe to the channel, that would be amazing. So thank you very much for hanging out till the end of the video. Take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Thank you.